Welcome, fellow lovers of the Bible, as we meditate now on the third great antiphon of Advent for December the 19th, which begins with the words, O root of Jesse, O radix Jesse, qui stas in signum populorum. This antiphon relies entirely upon prophetic quotations, specifically from Isaiah and Habakkuk. The phrase root of Jesse occurs twice in the Bible, once in Isaiah, where in chapter 11 he says, Sheresh Yeshai, the root of Jesse, Asher Romeith, which stands, L'nes Ramim, as a sign for the peoples. And the second time it appears in St. Paul's letter to the Romans toward the end in chapter 15, where he quotes the verse, Estai heriza tu Yesai, there will be the root of Jesse, kai hoan tistamenos archein ethnon, and one risen to rule the Gentiles, epauto ethne elpiusin, in him Gentiles will find hope. St. Paul then launches into a blessing for the people of Rome, the recipients of his letter, and expands on the thought of Isaiah. May the God of hope, hede theos tes elpidos, plerosai humas pases charas kai erenes, fill you with all joy and peace in believing, eis to periselvein humas, that you may abound, ente elpidi, in hope, and duname pneupantos hagiu, through the power of the Holy Spirit. St. Paul was attracted to this verse. He was drawn to the universality of the message that the root of Jesse would be a sign to the Gentiles. These are the only two verses in the entire Bible that mention the phrase root of Jesse. But Jesse is mentioned twice in the Isaiah chapter. The first time is at the beginning of the verse where it says, a shoot will sprout from Jesse's stem. And then in verse 10, the name Jesse recurs in the phrase, the root of Jesse shall stand as a sign for peoples. These two verses form an inclusion, embracing a unit of text. And what a unit of text it is. As the chapter begins, it presents the gifts of the Holy Spirit: wisdom, understanding, counsel, fortitude, knowledge, and fear of the Lord. St. Augustine seems to have added piety to this list, because piety was a very important virtue for the Romans. But see how the first word in this list of gifts is our first O antiphon, O wisdom, and the last word of this group of gifts is the Lord, which is our second O antiphon, O Adonai. Clearly, chapter 11 of Isaiah is a major source for the whole idea of the O antiphons. Solomon, the grandson of Jesse, was the king who chose wisdom above all other blessings, and therefore was given all other blessings besides. So the royal house of Israel, call it the house of David, call it the house of Jesse, is connected to the bestowing of all these gifts of the Holy Spirit. I think that the great prophecy in chapter 10 of Isaiah, which has so many aspects to it, is a response, a comfort after the great shock of the fall of the house of Omri in the north, which pretty much sealed the fate of the northern kingdom. It was not the end, but it was the last step before the end. In that event, the king of northern Israel was assassinated, and his entire family was exterminated, except for a member of the family who was the queen in Jerusalem. But her husband, the descendant of David, was also assassinated. Now, assassinations were fairly common in northern Israel through the course of its shorter history. On the average, every 25 years, a king was killed and his entire family was wiped out. But the house of David ruled consistently in the south. There were several assassinations, but over the course of a much longer period of time, 400 years rather than 250. And so it was a great shock for the assassination of the kings of both north and south and the extermination of the northern family. And Queen Athaliah, the one survivor of the royal houses of both north and south, killed off all the infants of the house of David. Yes, she was kind of like an Old Testament version of King Herod. One child survived to carry on the Davidic line. And this was an incredible trauma for the entire people of Israel. The decapitation of the royal houses of both north and south, with the southern one barely surviving in a single infant. Yes, they needed a little consolation after that. And that is why the consolation is so beautiful. These are blessings for all nations, not just for Israel. Jesse is a sign for the nations because Jesse himself was the grandson of Ruth the Moabite. And so Jesse's family has mixed blood. It is a joint Israelite-Moabite dynasty ruling Israel. The antiphon continues with a second quotation from much later in the book of Isaiah. Superquem continebunt reges ossum, yikpatsu malachim pihem. Kings shall close their mouths. Kings shall be dumbfounded. They shall be struck dumb by the reality of Jesse's house. Quem gentes deprecabuntur, Yazze goyim rabim ralau. Many nations shall be surprised by him. They will sue for peace. They will wish to be reconciled with God's king. Veni ad liberandum nos. Habakkuk expresses a most emphatic invitation for the coming of the Lord. Ki bo yavo, for surely the vision will come. Lo ya'aher, it will not delay. Yam no litardare. The antiphon takes the prophecy and turns it into a petition, where God is promising that he will not delay. We are now expressing the urgency of our own feelings that he should not delay, and we sound a little impatient. Actually, After the prophecy he would not delay, 700 years took place before the prophecy was fulfilled, God's time not being our time. But the arrival of Jesus, the root of Jesse, it is the fulfillment of nearly a millennium of hopes and dreams. Let's listen to the whole antiphon in its entirety now and think about that. O radix Jesse, qui stas in signum populorum, superquem continebunt reges ossum, quem gentes deprecabuntur, veni ad liberandum nos, iam noli tardare.